Silenn Thomas, welcome to Creator and Conversation. So good to speak with you again. How are you keeping?
Ah, I'm keeping good. It's been an exciting summer for sure. How are you keeping on?
Oh, good, good. Hanging in there. It's kind of, I'm an academic, so the summer's always a little bit quieter for us, I suppose.
Oh,
And congratulations as well. Your latest film, Frank Miller, American Genius, has found its new home on Apple Television now. Will be available to stream globally as from August the 12th. Oh, sorry, August the 11th. Is that
11.
correct?
August 11. Yes, yes, yes.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. So the day that this goes out, everyone can now go straight onto Apple Television and be able to find the documentary. Highly recommend it. You've recently had a couple of screenings last year in Dublin and then earlier this year in Cork as well and San Diego Comic Con. So I suppose just to kick things off before we delve into it, just your own story, Silen, just about how your love of film and storytelling first emerged, because you strike me as somebody that this is very firmly in your blood. So, how did you first realize this is what I want to do?
In terms of film, I think I've been watching movies since I was very little. So it's funny when you hear Frank saying, "I declared that I was going to be a comic book artist and author since he was 5." I think is what he says. Definitely, I understand that. I did not know exactly at 5 that I was going to be in film as a director, as a producer, but definitely my love of movies equals. His of comics or yours. I know you love comics as well. So there's definitely a lot of love for the craft of filmmaking in my case, and that's actually how we approached the documentary is to sort of honor the love of the craft of comics that Frank has with the love of the craft of movies that I have, and to sort of be of service to that story. But me, in relationship to, I never thought that my first movie would be a documentary. I as a director, I love feature filmmaking. I think it's such a compelling craft, and it's quite similar to comics in the sense of having a crew, having the screenwriting aspect, the editing, every part. As I discovered more what comics were, it really equaled even more sort of why I love movies so much. Is that it's such a collaborative medium, but it also involves a lot of solitary aspects. But so you have to kind of learn who you are in all of it, right? So I don't. That's I keep on learning, but I love it even more.
Absolutely. And just touching upon that aspect of learning, like what you have produced, it's not only just an amazing insight to one of the most influential creators of the 21st century, but it's also a really important historical document artifact now as well, because some of the interviews that you captured within this film, you have the late great Neil Adams and Jim Shooter. So like this is something which I strongly urge everyone, if you have any interest in comic book history, and let's not forget that the impact now that comic books have on just pop culture and storytelling today. Of course, as we record, Spider-Man Brand New Day has broken the box office records. And again, it's Frank Miller's The Hand that features in the film as well. And of course, Daredevil Born Again seeing great success on streaming as well with its TV series. So it's amazing the impact it has. Going into making this film, obviously Frank's story is a very compelling one to tell and to share. But did you realize at any stage that, wait, this documentary may take on another dimension of acting as this repository for future generations and capturing some of the greatest creators and contributors to the comic book medium? Did any of that kind of spawn upon you while working on it or afterwards, even?
Afterwards maybe, but as we were making it, I think we were trying to do the best we could, and to cite a Spider-Man reference when I approached Frank, because a lot of people were sort of saying, oh, there should be a documentary about Frank, he's so interesting. And then when I approached Frank and he said, oh no, you do it. And so when he armed me with that, I was like, okay, a little bit like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. I knew there was something to uncover, especially for me, because I didn't know Frank as much sort of in the comic space the way I understand it now. I met him on 300, so I met him on a sort of movie exploration, technically and storytelling wise at the time. And so I knew he was important, because I knew on set of 300, the Warner people were always telling me, Silenn, he's really important to us. He's also big with Batman. But I didn't know his whole other world, you just said, on Daredevil and Spider-Man, which is Marvel.
Mm.
So I discovered all of that by doing the documentary, and I knew that we had to approach every possible collaborator that were accessible to us when we started filming. You have to realize the movie is going to be accessible to everyone on August 11, 2026, but we started filming in October 2016. So it's already been a long journey. I'm so happy that we were able to film Neil Adams, Stan Lee, Jim Shooter, Dick Donner, who directed the first Superman. Excuse me. And so I realize now that we have important moments and elements in the documentary, but at the time I was just trying to capture as many people as I could that were part of Frank's world. And because he gave us that all access pass, I could see that people responded and wanted to talk. And so through him, we were able to have a window into, the older generation that he came into and was mentored by, and now is mentoring the next generation. So it's I didn't realize how important it would be, for sure. I just was trying to do the best I could.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's like, as I said, it's an amazing film, and that when everyone gets a chance to check it out, like I strongly urge them to, because it's so insightful and so wonderful to capture in their own words in the moment, and great insight into Frank's thoughts and process as well. And how was it? Frank gave you his blessing, gave you all access, and you already had that pre-established relationship, having worked on 300, and of course you guys worked on Coast together as well with the Netflix show. And how was it then going in, like when Frank says, okay, you have my blessing and full access? How do you strike that balance? Because obviously you're friends as well, and then you want to make sure, how do we strike this balance and how to explore it? Would you contact people first and then see who would, because I imagine no one was going to say no and contributing, particularly from the comics world, and contributing to this documentary, but and then go to Frank, or would Frank give you suggestions of people to reach out to? Like, how would you, I suppose, go about that kind of balancing act?
Wow. That's a good question. Um, well, I have mentors as well, and when he said yes, well, first of all, from a movie making point, I approached studios and Marvel and DC, and I did say, listen, I'm candidly coming to all of you guys because I want to do a great job, and I'm armed with this possibility, because Frank is saying I need to be the one doing it. So I just want to have your blessing as well. And I have to say, maybe it is the power of Frank Miller, but everyone was really open to what I was trying to accomplish. And you know, I mean, obviously they ask questions. I mean, some of the people I approached, they wanted to know what I was trying to do, and I really candidly was trying to say that through through Frank Miller, I wanted to also do a documentary about what American comics are, what as a storytelling form. So there was also a sort of micro aspect to the story and macro as well. And so I think they were all very receptive. I remember one mentor at Sony who was saying, you need at least 15 people that will say yes, and then 35 people started saying yes, and I was like, okay, we're on to something here. Like this is so it was humbling as well to see how receptive people were. And I dare anyone to actually do now the history of American comics documentaries. I would be happy to help, but someone has to do it. So I dare anyone to do that one because it's important to do it.
It's amazing, and absolutely. Hopefully, this is like gonna lead to more. And what I found was really interesting watching the documentary was this isn't a static in a studio, talking head documentary. You guys are traveling. We see you guys in Italy. We see you guys in Brazil. Was that always part of the plan to like this is gonna, go global in the filming and production of it? And how did that go about? Did you travel with a crew or did you connect with local crews there? I noticed there's a couple of conventions. Did you collaborate there? Because that was just really cool just to see. Because people, the comics by nature, particularly for professionals, it's very solitary. We spend a lot of time at our desks, but it's great to see, one of the greats in industry get to go out and, connect with people globally. So how is that taking it on the road?
Well, so it's also their way to become a little bit like rock stars, right? Those conventions. It's also a whole world that I feel is very tribal. Frank talks about it as a very tribal world, as a sort of underground world, which is not so underground at this point. But it's really everywhere. And so it was part of also a sub story to the documentary, is to follow Frank, who we were calling our protagonist. It was sort of to follow him in his habitat at work in his studio, but also while traveling. And we went everywhere. I mean, we went from Japan to Brazil to Spain to Ireland. um, we approached this documentary as extremely independent cinema, circa 70s or circa guerrilla filmmaking. Very, so yes, in some places we use local crew. I think for the Brazilian crew, I've become best friends with that crew now. But I literally met them at the airport because my crew member couldn't travel with us, and so we just established a crew right there for Brazil, and I got permits for them to shoot. You'll see there's a shot in a helicopter. I got my permit right there in the moment. So I thank CCXP on that, because they were understanding what we were trying to do, and they helped us achieve this crazy scope on no budget, basically. So yes, it was a mix, but I had my DP that was consistently with me, Giuseppe, and we approached also having a sort of smaller camera, a Sony camera, because we had tried at first bigger cameras, and it wasn't working because it was too cumbersome in terms of being accepted by Frank to be almost invisible and be able to follow him in different settings. And so we resorted to having a smaller camera. We added Zeiss lens, and so we were filming grand scope but with a very small camera. So that allowed us to sort of be versatile in many instances. But we complemented by filming with local crew. I think in Italy, in Spain and Brazil, to name a few locations. And so thank you to all these crews, because they were game. They were just like, okay, this is cool. Let's do this. So it added that flair, this dynamic aspect that I definitely wanted for the journey, to cover the journey.
No, absolutely. And like again, it's so reflective of comics being collaborative as well. So, having all those crews, all those locations, and it's great to hear you say about the guerrilla aspect of it as well, because that really does speak to like Frank Miller 100%, like as a young artist climbing the rooftops with his camera and his sketchbook. Absolutely. So it's great to see that same energy, come true into it. And just a little bit about the soundtrack and the scoring to it, because like it's a brilliant selection of music throughout as well. And was that something which you had spoken with Frank about, or just something that you kind of made decisions on based on Frank's interests? Because it's I really enjoyed like from the opening to the close, some great scoring there. So how did you go about thinking about the music aspect to accompany this?
So, I mean, music, sound design, sound mixing is a massive obsession for me. So we approached the score. I mean, it might sound very pompous, but I have an amazing uh, uh, affinity to music and music and film. And Sonny Levine, who is the composer of the soundtrack, let's say, I've known him forever, and we approached it like, kind of like Miles Davis with Elevator to the Scaffold soundtrack, to do the soundtrack when we had our edit. And we were very lucky to mix at Lucas Sound, which is for me like the mecca of sound mixing. There is nothing better, and they are very, very supportive of documentary work. And we had the best crew. And a shout out to my beloved friend Brian Chumney, and executive producer on the show, because he is an amazing sound designer, sound producer, Oscar nominated, just unbelievable. And so he knew that the sound was going to be very important to me. And so Sonny Levine composed the most of the soundtrack that you hear throughout, but not overwhelmingly. And then we have that sort of opening track, which is the Depeche Mode Jesus song, but sang by Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash is someone that Frank is obsessed with, and you'll see in the documentary, kind of like, every day at his drawing desk has an image of Johnny Cash in front of him. And I think he's an artistic mentor for him, and more. And so it became more and more important to have that track at the beginning. It just became, it has to be there. And so we were lucky to get the rights, and then one of my absolute favorite track is by Tom Jenkinson, Square Pusher. I was lucky enough to meet him when I was living in London. I'm obsessed with Square Pusher. I'm obsessed with Aphex Twin. I think, I mean, there is that revolution in England of, I feel there's no Daft Punk without, Tom Jenkinson and Richard, Aphex Twin. There's just, they're such geniuses. And Tom reminds me a little bit of Frank musically, and so I approached him to get a track on the documentary, and I was very lucky to have him say yes, and for Warp Records to be on board. So this was definitely one of my pinch dream moments to add to the world of Frank Miller. So it was a little bit of me, but definitely because there's genius at play all around, so it felt very connected.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because it really does, like between the location shots and the different places and that soundtrack as well, and then even very kinetic shots as well of Frank drawing like really get because I remember of course when he was here and he was speaking how he loves to draw how like he's that's his even more so than writing that's where his passion lies and then you see the pencil break on the page and that's almost like as if you were filming fight choreography or dance choreography it's very you got in there onto it as well did you mentioned about the cameras being like as less intrusive as possible, and was that like so? Was that just Frank in his studio and you guys observing then as he was walking, and like 'cause that was just and then going through the footage. Then how did you pick up on then and what you wanted to get in for? Is there anything in particular you were looking for when recording in the process of drawing? Was there, or did you just kind of leave the camera? And then look back afterwards then and pull from it. Is that the approach?
Yes, more of that because there's definitely a rhythmic aspect to how Frank works, and I think we just wanted to capture it raw and then sort of find the rhythm of music or sound or edit to sort of accompany that. But yes, so it was. I mean, at least definitely the intent uh, all the time was to sort of the camera had to sort of be as the least intrusive possible to kind of follow his
Mm,
movements, right?
yeah.
And also to get him to be comfortable, you know, to almost forget that we were there so that we could really capture the essence of how he works. He's such a hard worker that I think it was important to capture, he's as much of a writer as he is an artist. And I think it was important to capture that for everyone to see. Because I see it every day, and it's a very different aspect to try to capture it for all to see. Because to your point, sometimes it's very solitary. Like sometimes I
Mm.
will, not filming if I'm just working with him. He might have spent 5 hours working, and then we might work on other things. But the idea of spending hours with him to capture the essence of what he actually does as a writer and as an artist is a whole different endeavor. So
Absolutely. And how did you go about the archival work as well? Because there's a lot of stuff there from like previous interviews and snippets. So did you put a call out or did you have to, do the Indiana Jones bit and kind of travel and try and find all of this stuff? Because it's like it's amazing. You uncovered some like brilliant pieces and that must have been like really, really time consuming because that's something that's out of your control a little bit. You have to find people who have access to it to send it to you. So how was the research side of it just to obtain those primary sources as they were?
quite quite a lot. And Facebook, Bill Viola for some of the archival work was so kind, to let us use it. And same with the short film. Not to spoil alert here, but the short film, the vampire short film with Stan and Frank. It was really wonderful to create yet another community of people who had followed Frank, followed the comics industry, and were very understanding that I was doing something that was inclusive, and so and was going to be seen. So that was I wanted I had promised Frank a theatrical release, because obviously I also I love movies, and movies should be seen in theater. But after theater, it's also good to have it accessible if you can control it. On our Apple, Amazon are great partners. Then it's great because people can really see it in the comfort of their homes. But it was in theaters first. So and I think it was also to respect and salute everybody that had given me access to things. It was almost like I needed to respect all these people that knew something I was discovering, but the comics community, the fan community, they've known all this for so much longer than any of us. So it was a way to collaborate.
Awesome. And would there ever be the opportunity for, I know in projects like these, there's always something that's left on the cutting room floor. There's always choices to be made. Would it be the possibility of a release of, additional scenes or anything like that, like maybe across social media channels, anything like that? Any thoughts as, or you think now the balance of what you have now is pretty definitive and not to add anything else?
I mean, the documentary as it is pretty
Mhm.
definitive, but I've gotten a lot of requests for DVD or laser disc.
Yep, yeah.
So I definitely will look at this. There's and we're thinking of how can this documentary. I mean, I know that Bill Sienkiewicz is doing his. Maggie Mignola did one. So hopefully this has unleashed a lot more documentaries. And again, there should be the history of American comics and the history of graphic novel as a whole globally. All that needs to be done because it's such a storytelling form that is not only growing, it's just everywhere. So I think it definitely needs more. So I don't know. I mean, maybe a podcast. I don't know. We haven't figured this one out yet. But definitely, the way Frank is not a static artist and writer. There's an incredible legacy to him, but there's also a living legacy, which is why, again, no, not to spoil alert again, but our ending, I feel, is kind of very telling that there's no ending; it keeps going. So we have to find a way to to make it keep go to make it like a continuum. So let's see.
Awesome. No, yeah, definitely looking forward to it because like
Big continuum.
there's so much there to delve into and to revisit again and again. Like it would hold up to multiple viewings as well for those listening. Like this is something which you're gonna watch once and then it's gonna stay with you and you're gonna go back and watch it again because there's something that's gonna stay with you that you want to pick up again, or you might have even missed the first time as you're reflecting on something. It really is. It's a solid work that I can't recommend enough. And it's
Thank
a
you.
very serendipitous as well that it's now we were just saying just before recording, it's great because now Frank is now back to being a New York Times bestseller with Push the Wall. So he's and this is now out right at the same time as well. And you guys have been doing the book tour as well. He's done the anniversary signing of Forbidden Planet as well, and he's done his How To Academy talks. And how has it been, just recently going back on the road and seeing, because it must be wonderful for Frank to connect in that way and see that outpouring of love and respect for his work. And now you also can connect to people with the documentary now that it's available as well. How has that experience been this summer?
Well, I will tell you, I was very happy that we were not filming it. And it was really nice to enjoy the idea of like shamelessly showing, the button. We had a button for pre-orders, so I was shamelessly saying, you can do the pre-order. This is a companion piece now to this book. And I have to say, I mean, he's been talking so much about Neil Adams, and then in the documentary, you see exactly Neil Adams saying exactly, I was very tough with Frank. I told him he would never make it. And then also hearing Neil Adams saying how much of a father figure he felt to Frank, and to see how he made these leaps of progress, as an artist and as a writer. And so it's really nice to hear in the documentary how proud of him, of how proud Neil is of Frank, and now to see that Frank is communicating how he kind of did the memoir as sort of like an homage to Neil, who was saying, don't thank me, just do it for the next person. So it's kind of empowering to, even for me, it's like, okay, well, let's do more for each other. Let's it's very powerful to see that again. It's these are lessons forever, and again, the documentary is about comics. It's about again, maybe a bit of an underground world for many people, but I think it has life lessons for everybody. It's about just being an artist, living an artistic life, an
Mhm.
authentic life, of growth, of challenges, and then falling and coming back up. It's I think Frank is as epic in his life as his characters.
True, true. Absolutely. Like he is. um he, there's no doubt he not only helped to save certain characters, like redefine them, but also the sales and the genre and the medium as well. And it was also really inspiring, his personal journey and struggles as well, because he's human like the rest of us. And I remember last year when you guys were over we had screened it at Dublin Comic Con, and afterwards, then you guys kindly came in, did Q&A, and like one gentleman came up and it really spoke to him. And that
Yeah.
was a really profound moment for everyone there as well, just the sharing of that. So, it's been, it is great and inspiring, and particularly in these times, as you mentioned, like to find inspiration and to find authenticity, like that's what people are so hungry for.
Yeah.
And, they're going to find it in bucket loads in this particular project, without a doubt, even if they're not a comic book fan.
Right.
There's something here in very profound in the story. 'Cause I've watched documentaries, about, I'm thinking of a time I visited Lisbon and there was a documentary about a watchmaker,
Oh,
which,
wow.
and I was in a museum, they played, I was like, I was so enthralled, don't know a thing about a watch, but when the story is strong, it's gonna, sing and appeal to you, no matter what. And obviously I'm
Right.
biased with this particular huge comic book fan, huge Frank Miller fan, but I really do recommend that this is gonna speak to everyone who watches it. You're gonna really, connect with it. And
Thank you.
is it too early to say, like, for yourself, have you already got, now that you've got, project one as a director under the belt, is now that you have that bug, are you already thinking of what the next project might be, or is it too early days?
Well, so there is definitely one project I want to do. I mean, many, but there's one definitely that I've been working on it since probably like the age of 19. So it's definitely, but it's moved,
Mhm.
and again, the timing will become right. I also have a teenage daughter, so I have to sort of be truthful with how to scale that. Like I want to see her education through, and so I don't know. I know what it takes to be on set every day, and to so I want to, the timing will be right, and it hopefully will be soon. But I also, it's that thing of balancing life, artistic life, and sort of and be the best director for the subject matter, unencumbered with feeling like, okay, well, I'm missing out on this. So I want to be full force on set. I want to be with my actors as like fully for them. And so yes, there's definitely one I will direct. And then other ones, we're obviously we're developing a lot of different things with Frank. So it's I love being a producer too. So we keep ourselves busy. There's no question.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Sinead, for taking the time for speaking with me. Again, really thoroughly enjoyed the
Absolutely.
documentary. Highly recommend it to everyone. Is there a particular channel, if folks want to, follow you online or follow the project or anything else that's coming up, where would you like to direct them to go?
Yes, there's actually, so our distributor Picture House. There's definitely a website for the documentary.
Mhm.
If you want, I will. give you all that because I don't have it offhand. I
Yeah, yeah,
should.
sure. Yeah, no
Uh,
worries.
I'm pretty sure it's Frank Miller in AmericanGenius.com, but let's make sure. I will
Yep.
give you that offline. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah, I
And
will.
then
I will
future,
tell the. Yeah, sorry.
no, no, then future on will have it up on screen, hopefully then right now.
Great, great.
But but no, this has been amazing and very best of luck with it ahead as it enters its new home and streaming. And again, everyone, Frank Miller, American Genius, available to stream now internationally from Apple Television. Thanks so much, and
Thank
all
you
the
so
best.
much. Thank you. So nice to talk to you, as always. All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.